Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Dorset Council Cabinet. Just a quick roll call. I'll just run through all the Cabinet members are present today, but I'll just quickly run through their names and I'll ask them when they present a report just to say who they are and what their portfolio is. So I've got Peter Wharf, who's Vice Chairman, Ray Bryan, Graham Carr-Jones, Tony Ferrari, Jill Haynes, Andrew Parry, Gary Suttle and David Walsh, and myself, Spencer Flowers, leader of council. Officers present today: Matt Prosser, Chief Exec, Aidan Dunn, Executive Director, John Selgren, Executive Director, Teresa Levy, Executive Director for Children, Vivian Broadhurst, Executive Director for Adult, Sam Crowe, Director of Public Health, Jonathan Mayer, Corporate Director and Monitoring Officer, David McIntosh, Corporate Director, HR and OD, and Kate Critchell, Senior Democratic Seniors Officer, Services Officer, and doing the producing today, Pauline Weld and Judy Saunders. So let's move over then to apologies. Kate, there aren't any apologies today, are there?
No, Chairman, there's no apologies.
Minutes of the last meeting on the 3rd of November. Can I sign those as a true record when I get the opportunity, colleagues?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. The usual, if there's anything that crops up during the meeting that anyone feels they should have declared, then please let me know. Do it in the chat box. Public participation. We've got a number of we've got 7 questions actually today, and the questions are going to be read in turn by either Matt Prosser or Jonathan Mayer. We've got questions from Andy Matthews, David Moss, John Colvert, Peter Bowyer, Sally Cook, Roy Phillips, MBE, and Stinsford Parish Council. So, Matt, can I ask you to deal with the first question, please?
You can, yes, Chairman. I'll just take my computer off mute. So the first question is from Andy Matthews, and it's re-agenda item 9 on the local plan consultation documents, Central Functional Area, Portland. Section 26 of the document, which deals with the central functional area, sets out a narrative around the future development for Portland. It is welcomed that a number of proposals support the neighbourhood plan, but some, as currently described, are at odds with the local planning authority's position, which was agreed earlier this year with the neighbourhood plans examiner. Specific examples are in regard to key employment sites and some aspects of the development boundaries scheduled, particularly the exclusion of the Albionstone employment policy area, as well as Southwell Business Park area. Providing certainty and flexibility to these employment areas at a time of change is an important element to the economic vision which runs in tandem with the neighbourhood plan. As you're aware, the neighbourhood plan is currently held because of the COVID pandemic, and the earliest the referendum can be held is May 2021. It is intended that the local plan consultation will commence during the early part of 2021. Meanwhile, policies in the neighbourhood plan can carry material weight in planning decisions. There is a risk that unless the base data is aligned, that this could undermine the basis to any referendum. Would Cabinet please clarify the position?
Thank you very much, Matt. I'll invite David Walsh, please. Councillor David Walsh.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm Councillor David Walsh, portfolio holder for planning. And thank you, Andy, for your question. The policies within the neighbourhood plan will continue to carry weight. There is a difference between what constitutes a key employment site when considering all sites across Dorset and what constitutes a key site in a more local context. Where sites are important to the local economy, they can be protected through the neighbourhood plan. Now, the draft local plan is proposed for consultation and feedback on issues such as this, and are welcomed as a starting point for further discussions on these issues. So thank you.
Thank you very much, David. The next question is from David Moss, and I'll invite Jonathan Mayer to read the question, please.
Good morning, members. In 2008, a financial appraisal of possible development north of Dorchester was undertaken by the Halcrow Group on behalf of West Dorset District Council. It found that after a notional development period of 14 years, it would have a negative value of £174 million. It also concluded that the necessary roadworks to serve such a development would cost £113 million. The only up-to-date information on the viability of development north of Dorchester on the Council's website are 2 paragraphs which refer to the Council's recent experience of the Gillingham extension, highlighting the need to understand the cost implications of the infrastructure requirements on such large-scale schemes. In May 2020, a planning inspector's report into the North Essex Authority's shared strategy found in respect of 3 proposed garden communities that 2 of the 3 proposed garden communities were financially unsound and therefore not deliverable. Therefore, the draft plan failed the key test of whether it was sound or not. What is of particular importance in the inspector's analysis of the financial viability of the proposals is his criticism of the unrealistic assumptions made on behalf of both the councils involved and the promoters of the garden communities. And in particular, he specifically referred to unrealistic assumptions regarding build-out rates and the need to account for optimism bias in considering the cost of the infrastructure requirements. And then, Chairman, we have 2 questions. The first is, in the absence of an up-to-date financial appraisal, which both takes into account the Halcrow Group conclusion of 2008 and the inspector's report of May 2020, is it appropriate to submit to the public for public consultation a major development proposal north of Dorchester when its financial viability and therefore its deliverability is at the very least in grave doubt? And then the second question, given all that is known about the climate emergency and the need for sustainability, is it appropriate that north of Dorchester can only be built if a new link road between the A35 and the A37 is built? The route of such a link road, because of topography and cost, will of necessity be driven through the middle of what is supposed to be a garden community.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Invite David Walsh to respond, please.
Thank you, David, for a very well-researched and detailed question. The 2008 Halcrow report was produced under a very different economic context, and further work is needed to assess current viability. Early work to start a more detailed viability assessment for the whole local plan is being undertaken. More detailed viability work will take place over coming months to fully understand the viability implications of the policies within the local plan for development across Dorset. The Garden Community Programme includes a range of support for local authorities to evaluate proposals for large-scale developments. This includes support for evidence studies to be evaluated to evaluate a site's deliverability, including viability, through a support across government bodies to help unlock issues that arise. The movement strategy proposed within the plan seeks to maximise walking and cycling opportunities alongside the provision for facilities within the development. This will help to minimise the reliance on car travel and make everyday trips shorter and more sustainable. It should also be noted that the road link now proposed is not the full bypass being considered in the Halcrow report, but a link road of an appropriate scale to run through a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. The next question is from John Culver, and I'll ask Matt Prosser to read it, please.
Thank you, Chair. So question from John Calvert, re item 9, local plan, section 23.8 and section 23.9 in Dorchester Town Centre strategy. As a Dorchester resident, I would like reassurance that any plan involving changes to Trinity Street would not just look at the public car parks as an easy place to put retail enterprises, but also look at the public transport issues relating to the lack of room for queues at the various bus stops and at the overall look of Trinity Street. It needs major strategic changes rather than simply putting shops on the 2 car parks to the west of Trinity Street.
Thank you very much, Matt. David Walsh.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, John. I can assure you that any changes to the Trinity Street area in Dorchester would need to include improvements to the built environment. Increasing footfall within the area would aid in creating a more vibrant and attractive area of the town. The council will be looking in detail at how it can work alongside town councils across Dorset to help deliver regeneration including improved public realm? Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. The next question's from Peter Bowyer. I'll invite Jonathan Mayer to read the question, please.
Thank you. We have two questions from Mr. Bowyer, both about the local plan. Can the council outline how it plans to incorporate the recommendations from the research report commissioned by Dorset CPRE, that is Campaign to Protect Rural England, on Dorset housing evidence needs into the emerging Dorset local plan? This report was sent to every member of Dorset Council and to its key officers. To date, Dorset CPRE has received no comments or feedback from members and officials of the council. This is particularly disappointing when considering the requests made at the September and October 2020 meetings of the Cabinet to have community input and engagement into a shared vision for the Dorset local plan. The report is particularly relevant to agenda item 9, Dorset Council Local Plan Consultation. The research findings and the substance of the report do not appear to feature at all in the consultation planned for January 2021 and the associated information. And so the questions: in the interests of public engagement and public confidence in the exercise of the planning function in Dorset, it would be helpful to know how Dorset Council intend to make use of this important report in the development of the Dorset local plan, and what other forms of engagement than the January 2021 consultation the council will be developing for the Dorset local plan. And then the second question: can the council please explain why it has not included the strategic housing land availability assessment in the background papers to agenda item 9? The strategic housing land availability assessment is an important document for residents. The provisional sites proposed by developers do not clearly show policy changes as expected. This is somewhat unusual and unexpected.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. David Walsh to respond, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Peter, for your question. National policy states that the government standard methodology should be used to calculate housing needs, unless exceptional circumstances justify an alternative approach, which also reflects current and future demographic trends and market signals. It is important to make sure that our plan is likely to be found sound at examination, and to have an up-to-date plan in place as soon as possible, and this means that it needs to follow national policy. The standard methodology is being revised as proposed through recent government consultations, and so the numbers for our area will change during the course of plan preparation. The consultation draft of the local plan seeks to make provision for the housing required under the current standard methodology, whilst also giving some flexibility to respond to changes in the methodology, to respond to the consultation and respond to the delivery of sites over the plan period. The SHLA, the Strategic Housing Land Availability Assessment, is evidence that supports the local plan consultation document and is available online on the Dorset Council website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. The next question is from Sally Cook, and Matt Prosser is going to read it.
Thank you, Leader. And this is again item 9, the local plan. The development envisaged in policy DOR 13 of the draft local plan, the garden community proposal, will, if approved, greatly increase the number of people wanting outdoor recreation in the Dorchester area. The garden community proposal intends to improve public access and nature conservation in the River Valley. This habitat, however, is not the most robust to cope with large numbers of extra visitors. The nearby public local nature reserve at Thorncombe Woods is thought by local residents to be already at full stretch and unable to cope with a big upsurge in visitor numbers. This is an opinion which has been voiced during recent consultation on Stinsford's draft neighbourhood plan. What ideas does Dorset Council have in the context of policy DOR 13 for creating new, robust outdoor amenity space, such as extensive community woodland, larger in scale than the copses referred to in point 8 of the policy DOR 13, so that all residents close to Dorchester can continue to enjoy the same or better opportunities for countryside recreation as we now enjoy now?
Thank you, Matt. David Walsh to respond, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you very much, Sally, for your question. The draft proposal for Policy DOR 13 does not currently refer to extensive community woodland, but such suggestions can be made as response to the consultation. Opportunities exist within the area to deliver substantial areas of open space, some of which will be appropriate for informal recreation, with linkages being made to the wider countryside. Other opportunities could involve community orchards or making better use of Puddletown Forest for informal recreation. All policies within the proposed site boundary would need to be considered within the more detailed master planning for the development, taking account of the advice from biodiversity, landscape and heritage consultees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. The next question is from Roy Phillips, MBE, and I'll ask Jonathan to read it, please.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just check? The question I've got is from Stinsford Neighbourhood Plan Group.
Yeah, there's a difference in this briefing note I've got and the public participation list I got on my agenda, Jonathan. So I've relied on what I said earlier. So there is one from Roy Phillips, which is the next one, following the Stinsford one, and I'll come back to Stinsford if I may.
Right, thank you. So this is a question from Roy Phillips, MBE. A question for Councillor Ray Bryan. At the Cabinet meeting on 6th October, it was minuted that Councillor Bryan would respond to all statements and questions submitted in relation to proposed major roadworks in Diners Hollow, Melbury Abbas. After 2 months, no response has been received by stakeholders, Melbury Abbas and Cannes Parish Council or residents. When will this be actioned? And then a second question, why were the stakeholders and residents not given reasonable time between issue of the papers and reports and the closing date for submissions, in some cases only 2 days, to seek opinion on the reports and to prepare a detailed submission on the Diners Hollow proposed works? Why was the substance of the submissions received after the closing date not made available to the Cabinet as required by the 1974 Local Government Act? Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Can I invite Councillor Ray Bryan to respond to the first question, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm Councillor Ray Bryan, Portfolio Holder, Highways, Travel and Environment. And thank you, Mr. Phillips, for the question. As promised at Cabinet on the 6th of October, we have read and considered all the views received both before and after the Cabinet deadline regarding the proposed slope stabilisation works at Diners Hollow. The correspondence we have received regarding Diners Hollow is a reflection of the many demands we need to meet. The concerns highlight the impact and proposed slope stabilisation works might have on the vegetation, drainage, climate change, historic nature of the hollow and the safe flow of traffic. Dorset Council has a duty under the Highways Act to maintain safe passage as far as is reasonably practical. The proposed work at Diners Hollow is prompted by the safety concerns raised by the bank instability and the risk of injury, possibly death, posed to users of the highway. Let me once again reassure everyone that the environmental issues in the hollow will guide our work here. Before any scheme proceeds, new ecological tree and landscape surveys will be undertaken. The use of soil nails is currently seen as a measured and proportionate response to the threat posed. But of course, geotechnical design will need to be reviewed against current best practice and site conditions that may have changed. The current proposed design is the result of detailed appraisal of the ground conditions, the ecology and visual environment, which minimises the extent of the soil nailing. We do not plan to remove all the trees from the hollow. A selection of mature trees will be retained and planting holes created for replacement trees on the slopes. This would allow more daylight into the hollow and the growth of new plants and saplings through the mesh to create a more varied habitat. Ecology will govern the time of the year that construction and maintenance operations take place to minimise the impact. Please be assured there are no plans to change the traffic management within Melbury Abbas. If the proposals are adopted and funding is allocated, the traffic signals limiting traffic flow to a single lane at the lower end of the hollow will remain. The temporary concrete barriers will no longer be required. The advice given to HGV traffic will not change, and the retention of the signals will not make the route more attractive for traffic in general. To conclude, Dorset Council has difficult decisions to make, balancing conflicting demands of social health and well-being, the climate emergency, highway safety, and ensuring a sustainable economy. Whatever the outcome, the decision will not be taken lightly and will be made in the best interest of Dorset as a whole. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ray. And I'll just pick up the second part of the question, which was really to do with process. And I am aware from talking to Ray and other colleagues, we had a significant number of representations when the papers and report were published. And all I can say is that papers and report were published, in this case, as always, in accordance with the timeline set out in the council's constitution. So they are a bit tight, but nevertheless, you know, they are in line with our constitution. So that I'll leave it at that. I will have a further look, Mr. Phillips, and just to satisfy myself yet again. But I'm pretty confident that we are where we are on that one. The last question is from Stinford Parish Council. I presume, Matt, you will be doing that one.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. So question from Stinsford Neighbourhood Plan Group, care of Stinsford Parish Council. So draft local plan policy DOR 13 proposes that the land to the north of Dorchester will be developed in accordance with a master plan produced for the site, which will reflect garden community principles. In paragraph 12 of the Government's Garden Communities Prospectus 2018, we read that proposals should set out how the local community is being or will be engaged and involved at an early stage, and strategies for continued community engagement and involvement. We are clear that local communities, both current and future residents, must have a meaningful say in developing the proposal from design to delivery. If the development proposed in DOR 13 goes ahead, what mechanism will Dorset Council put in place to ensure that this principle of garden communities is followed?
Thank you very much, Matt. I'll ask David Walsh to respond, please.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you for this question. The original West Dorset District Council submission to Garden Cities programme made a commitment to involve key stakeholders from the local community in the production of a master plan for the site, with this master plan being adopted as a supplementary planning document. The Council is currently considering formal governance arrangements and which approach will be most effective in steering the master plan. The formation of a steering group with community, council and developer representation is likely to be the favoured approach. There would also be a wider public consultation on the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. That's the end of the public questions. We've now go on to agenda item 5, which is questions from members, and we have may have two questions today, I think, from Councillor Nick Ireland. Nick.
Thank you, Spencer. I'll start with the first one. I note with some concern that in the latest performance update against our council's plan, this is an agenda item, there is a significant shortfall in the number of affordable homes delivered. Ignoring for now the fact that 300 homes per annum is wholly inadequate target, given the housing list extends to something like 5,000, the facts are we've only achieved 75% in the first half year, leaving another 186 before year end just to break even. As a member of one of this council's planning committees, I observe that most of our meetings have at least one item asking for a reduction or the complete removal in many cases of the provision of affordable housing in a development previously approved. What is this council going to do in the remaining 3+ years of its term to ensure that not only do we meet the 300-year target, 300 houses a year target of affordable homes, but significantly exceed it for the benefit of our residents?
Thank you, Nick. Can I invite Graham Carr-Jones to respond, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, are you okay there? Thank you for the question, Nick. In the first 2 quarters of the year, 114 new affordable homes were delivered. But as you'll be aware, all developments have suffered delays this year, which has affected delivery. Developers are working hard to catch up, And it's also worth noting that this is the final year that the Homes England housing funding programme for the 5-year period 2016 to 2021. This means that the registered providers will be keen to complete units that have grant attached to this programme. There are a number of developments for affordable housing which plan to be completed this year. We estimate that a further 200 affordable homes will be complete before the end of March 2021. This figure may of course change, as there are a number of short-term factors that could affect these homes being completed, i.e. COVID and Brexit. Examples of developments that will deliver affordable homes this year include Poundbury in Dorchester, Cuthbury Close in Wimborne, Flaxfield Rise in Bedminster, Curtis Fields in Weymouth, Lower Road in Stallbridge, Compass Point in Swanage, and the Platinum Skies development for affordable home ownership for older people in Sherburn. The Council is working hard with its registered providers and Homes England to increase the supply of affordable housing in Dorset. Homes England recently published details of their 21 to 26 funding programme, and we are supporting the RPs in making further bids. There are a number of affordable schemes that are being brought through which will use Homes England funding to develop a range of housing tenures. Recently completed all affordable schemes include 36 homes in Mosterton and 20 homes in Long Burton. These developments have a planning policy compliant amount of affordable housing included in the Section 106, and grant funding is used to deliver the rest of the site as affordable. Examples of all affordable developments coming forward including sites in Bedminster, Stallbridge, Blandford, Gillingham, Oakford Fitzpaine, Sherburn and Weymouth. These developments usually include a mix of rented and shared ownership housing. The Council will continue to work with RPs to increase the number of land-led developments coming forward. These sites will combine with homes delivered through planning policy on open market developments, rural exception sites and community-led housing schemes to ensure a positive pipeline of schemes. The Council are working to increase the amount of temporary accommodation available. Examples include the acquisition of a 3-bed adapted bungalow in Wareham. Previously, a lady and travel lodge had been used for housing people with disabilities, and 4 relocatable units also in Wareham. The housing team are also planning a number of acquisitions and leases to further increase the stock of temporary accommodation, and have successfully bid for government funding through the Next Steps accommodation programme. This falls partly through the planning process. From a planning perspective, all our current local plans include policies for the provision of affordable housing within general housing developments. The provision of affordable housing can, however, reduce the financial viability of development and is produced as part of a balanced scheme. As market conditions vary over time, it is inevitable that some schemes become, through the impact of providing a compliant level of affordable housing, unviable. To move forward, it is in these cases not possible to secure full policy compliant levels of affordable housing. Viability is always thoroughly challenged and tested when this case is made to ensure that the argument is valid and that agreement on a reasonable amount of affordable housing is reached. Developers must provide evidence which is then independently assessed on behalf of the Council. Viability issues will also be tested through the process of preparing the new local plan, reducing the likelihood of viability arguments on applications being successful other than in exceptional circumstances. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Graham. Nick?
Yeah, thank you, Graham, for a comprehensive answer.
Okay.
So I go on to the second question?
Yes, of course.
Okay, this is slightly longer, I'm afraid, sorry. So the ward I represent, I should have introduced myself before as Crossways ward member. So the ward I represent in Dorset Council is entirely rural, ranging from small settlements such as Upton and Ringstead to the largest village of Crossways. Apart from the latter, all the settlements I represent are regarded under the current local plan as unsustainable. And recently, post Dorset Council's emergence, these villages have been subject to a strict application of a sustainability rule from the local plan, and is essentially denied any opportunities for new builds, unless perversely for holiday accommodation when apparently it's all okay. In virtually all these cases, the proposed residential developments, many profoundly towards the eco end and affordable end of the spectrum, have been fully supported by the local parish councils and their residents, as they realise that without the development of suitable housing, their communities will atrophy, the village shop will close, and their children will leave. This council's proposed local plan does not address these issues. It persists with notions of 15-mile sustainability when most people don't work in the local town. It ignores the fact that rural bus services won't suddenly emerge as a panacea for all, when we have absolutely no policy to inject the funds or subsidies necessary to sustain the service levels required. And whilst we also shamefully continue to pay the bare minimum possible for bus pass use, about £1 of travel, I think. And it completely ignores the fact that ICE vehicles are banned for sale in 10 years' time. BEV vehicles have no emissions, 0. And assuming this, the charging source is already friendly, so basically distance doesn't matter. The proposed local plan places the communities I represent all in Tier 4, Bar 1, i.e. no housing. A more suitable policy would be to allow development within or adjacent to such settlements if they meet a suitable standard, for example, passive house. Will the Cabinet endorse and enact on this proposal? Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Can I invite David Walsh to respond, please?
Thank you, Leader, and thank you very much, Nick, for your question. The strategy within the local plan is to focus development into locations where the distance people need to travel meet their day-to-day needs is minimised, and where sustainable travel options, walking, cycling and public transport are available. This not only reduces the resources consumed whilst making journeys, but also reduces reliance on car travel, thereby reducing congestion within towns. These active travel options help to create healthy communities where people are physically active. The relative concentration of development also has benefits for service provision. More scattered development, for example, results in increased costs, such as those for school transport. Where smaller communities support additional development in their settlements, it is still possible for them to propose this through neighbourhood plans, and I would encourage that way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. We're now going to go into the next item, agenda item 6, which is the forward plan. As I always say this, and we'll repeat it again today. It's an iterative document. We're forever updating it as new business comes forward to us. So basically, we've got what we've got before us this morning, colleagues. Can we accept the forward plan as published? Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you.
Agreed.
I'm going to go on to agenda item 7, but I'm conscious of the fact that I will move to agenda item 13 as close to 10:45 as I can, because we've got an external person contributing to that report. But I will go to agenda item 7, which is the Dorset Council Plan Q2 Performance Update, and invite Peter Wolf to speak, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope everybody can hear me. Councillor Peter Wolf, Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder responsible for change and transformation. This is the second Cabinet report on performance against the Council Plan that has come here, and it shows data from the period of July to September, which is Q2, where available, and highlights where performance has improved, where it's declined, and what we're doing about it. We have 3 red measures, 2 of which relate to the provision of suitable housing, and 1 of which relates to the number of children in care. The impact of the pandemic also continues to be a very major concern, though thankfully cases in Dorset remain relatively low compared to the national average. Dorset children returned to school successfully in the autumn term, and monitoring against daily national data has shown that Dorset had a consistently high proportion of schools fully open and higher attendance rates than national averages, which is obviously extremely positive. COVID-19 has had an impact on the source and the types of referrals of children that have been made, and there are increasing numbers of children being referred to us who have not been previously known to children's services. However, it is positive that the number of referrals is reducing because it indicates that our initial interventions are working. In September, Children's Services implemented a new locality model of working, which has started yielding positive feedback from some residents. A continued focus on collaborative service planning is underway, with positive examples of success in the Special Educational Needs Service, sometimes called SEND. COVID-19 has also had a detrimental impact on the number of 16 and 17-year-olds not in education, sometimes called NEET, employment or training, as the pandemic reduced the number of referrals. As reported in September, housing remains a key challenge, and we're particularly concerned about the number of pregnant women, families in bed and breakfast accommodation for more than 6 weeks. Although the service prioritises these households wherever possible, supply of suitable alternative temporary accommodation remains under pressure. The council actively continues to work with registered provider partners and private landlords to meet this demand. The number of children in care also remains a major and ongoing concern, 481 at the end of September 2020. New processes have been put in place to give managers whole service oversight of children who are starting, and this is now starting to have a positive impact. But like housing, this is a long-term problem that will take time and multi-agency working to start to show definitively trend improvements. A new panel of counsellors and others is now meeting to ensure that we are focused on long-term planning for children, and meetings with service managers in localities will also look to improve performance around permanence. I wonder if, Kate, could you go to the first red indicator? Keep going. Now, the council plan is a mechanism where we can evaluate our performance against metrics, and it's a very comprehensive plan, and it's very challenging, and therefore it is not surprising that there are some we're doing well on, some we are meeting, and some we're struggling on, and that's what plans are for. So I don't view this as in any way a problem. I view this as an opportunity. The reds apply to a number of portfolio holders who may or may not wish to comment, although I would point out that Graham Carr-Jones, yeah, keep going a bit more, bit more. Bit more. Right, stop there. Okay, so my concern is that we need to recognise that these are worth reporting on, that they are extremely valuable to give us an indication of where we do need to take either corrective action or more efforts. And the portfolio holders may wish to comment, although I would point out that Graham Carr-Jones, Councillor Graham Carr-Jones, has given an extremely comprehensive answer, primarily on one of the reds that refers to him. But through you, Chairman, I would ask if any or all of the portfolio holders would like to respond to the reds. I don't intend to talk about others, because our purpose in this plan is to focus on those issues which are red and to leave others alone for the moment. Over to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Peter. Just before I do, I've got Graham Carr-Jones has got a request to speak. I do what I always do, and I'll give her the opportunity for other non-executive members to ask a question or comment before I open a report up to the Cabinet. I don't see anything in the chat box, but if you do, as we go through the agenda, if anything crops up that you feel you'd like to ask a question or comment on, please make me aware and I'll let you in before we start. I've got Paul Kimber. Paul. Hello, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Chair and fellow councillors. And I'm glad you've got the red up, Peter. I did raise with Graham, and Graham and I are going to have a talk about it sometime, to be fair to Graham, so I don't want to sort of push you into something, but I have raised the idea of housing co-ops. Whilst they're not a big feature in Dorset, in other parts of the country they are, and I just wondered, has any consideration yet been given to housing co-ops? These could take a number of ways. There could be a sort of social enterprise that could undertake to do some, or groups of people actually getting together, and we've seen some in Dorset where they've been built. I some years ago ran a small housing co-op north of Dorchester. My question is around, has any thought been given to housing co-ops yet? And I'm happy to if you like, wait for that question to be, if you like, considered by the housing department via Graham. Thank you.
Peter, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted as well. Spencer, you are on mute.
I didn't put myself on mute. Someone put me on mute.
Neither did I. If I could comment first before presumably going to Councillor Graham Carr-Jones. This report is primarily a progress and measurement report against individual metrics that we have set. We will clearly review these metrics to see if they're appropriate. What it isn't is not a policy shaping or formulation exercise. And whilst I understand and have a great deal of sympathy with Paul's concern, I think this is, without being rude, not the place to discuss that. I think we have overview and policy committees who should take those ideas and try and shape them into something before they come to us. So I would thank Paul for his question, but I would advise against going into any detail, because I think it's something that we should spend time reviewing and then bringing to the various committees and bringing to Cabinet eventually. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Peter. I agree, and I think Paul would agree with that as well, because he hinted that in his comments. Graham Carr-Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Peter. Yes, Paul. Everyone to get a message in there for housing, and always appreciate it. Always welcome. However, what I want to respond to, Peter, is some of the rates. As you said, the housing one, I think I've given an adequate answer to earlier. But what needs to be remembered that these are just a snapshot in time. So to bring you up to date, what I'd like to just let you know that currently in B&B for longer than 6 weeks at the end of November, I had 8 families and with children and 1 pregnant lady. That was 16 children. We've recently had offers of 4 family-sized temporary accommodation properties, including a large one for the 4-bedroom need, and this will reduce the children to 8 and families to 4 in B&B this side of Christmas. So there's some really good productive work going on by the housing team, and I think our acknowledgement must go to them. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Graham. That is really good news, particularly we're coming up to the season of well, we hope it's going to be a season we can enjoy. Let's hope so. I've got no other requests to speak, colleagues. You've heard what Peter's had to say. Can we agree to accept the report? Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Well, I'm now going to go to agenda item 13, which is the annual safeguarding report, and I'm going to invite Andrew Parry to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Andrew Parry, the Cabinet Member for Children, Education, Skills and Early Help. And I believe we should be joined on the meeting today by Anthony Douglas, CBE, who is part of the report's author. Cabinet will be pleased to note that good progress on a range of areas has been demonstrated, and a strong commitment to child safeguarding remains a priority for us. In the coming year, the priorities have been identified as an effective front door arrangements, practice development and improvements, improving information sharing with schools following instances of domestic abuse, ensuring the best support we can for babies and new parents, looking at matters to address child exploitation and child neglect, focusing on hearing the lived experiences of our children and young people involved in safeguarding systems. The report is a comprehensive report. There are no decisions for Cabinet to make regarding the report, but we are asked to note the content today, Chairman. We do invite comment and question, of course, before we do that.
Thank you, Andrew. I think this is timely, and we've actually at 10:40, coming up to 10:45, and I'm sure I saw that Anthony Douglas is online. Can I invite him to speak, please, to this report?
Hello, Chairman. It's Kate. You're right. He is on the line in the sense that he's on the chat bar, but at the moment I'm not sure that he is with us. We're just trying to see if he can get himself to join.
Right. Okay. I'll give it a couple of minutes. If not, we'll have to go past it, I'm afraid, because we've got quite a busy agenda today. Andrew, is there anything else you can embellish around the report?
I didn't have any specific matters to bring to Cabinet's attention. I do appreciate that the Executive Director may wish to also comment in her capacity. It is, of course, an annual safeguarding report as part of our Pan-Dorset arrangements. So, of course, we'll always be mindful that elements of the report refer to the BCP council area.
Yes, thanks, Andrew. Can I, on that basis, can I invite Teresa just to add anything that she wants to on this report? Teresa?
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, I know that if Anthony could make the technology work this morning, he would state that the safeguarding partnership is progressing well. It's increasingly developed over its recent months and is very well attended and supported across the 3 statutory leaders, so that being health, police and ourselves as local authorities. The way in which we're working across the piece with BCP is under constant consideration to make sure that that works well for both local authorities. Clearly some of our priorities differ in subtle ways, but we attempt to make sure that they're as unified as possible to support partners who work across the whole place-based area. There are some concerning situations for us to deal with out of COVID. Clearly, as colleagues will know, county lines are always rapidly changing and moving ahead of us, as are some of those complex issues around domestic abuse and drugs and alcohol, and particularly issues about the availability of support for families involved in drugs and alcohol issues. So we look at those, we respond with agility in a monthly meeting to any emerging issues that come through our quality assurance subgroup, which supports us very well in terms of bringing up themes from case file outcomes, but also from our data. So the present safeguarding arrangements are working well. Anthony is providing excellent independent chairing of that and provides some real expertise around scrutineering as well. So I'm here to answer any questions, but otherwise I think the report stands fairly confidently on its own.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Can I ask Kate whether we've had any success from technology point of view?
Oh, here we are. I think Anthony's just arrived now.
Right. I will invite Anthony to speak then, if I may.
Do you want to just unmute yourself, Anthony?
Good morning, and I do apologise. I had the item for much later, and I was just joining in now to tune in, but apologies if I got the time wrong. So, what you have is the annual report of the Pan-Dorset Safeguarding Partnership from, well, this is the 1920 report. Of course, we're well into the current year, and all that's happened with COVID has thrown that out somewhat, and it's been a different year, a unique year, as everybody knows. But this particular report talks about the formation of the partnership from the legacy local safeguarding children boards in the predecessor councils before LGR. So this is a new multi-agency partnership. It's focus mostly is on system leadership because of the importance of child protection, adolescent protection, and the report sets out, hopefully in quite a short format, the various activities we've been doing in bringing the Pan-Dorset issues together. And I particularly pick out neglect and child exploitation, where there's been a tremendous amount of work to prevent suicides. That's a particular difficulty in both local authority areas, and also the importance of balancing a place-based approach, because Dorset Council being new, it wants to develop its own children's services rapidly. It has good reasons for that, and the same with BCP. It has its own internal logic to develop its own services. So there's a balance between what's had to be produced across Dorset, Pan Dorset, and what has to be developed specifically within Dorset Council and within BCP. And so we're having another look at that just to make sure the balance is right, because particularly with new DCSs, new programs of work within each local authority, Dorset's got very strong ambition to keep local families safe, local children safe, with its strengthening services program and the like. So it's a natural tendency to want to do all of that yourself when you're growing as a service. Obviously, partners like Health and the Police, who operate across Dorset, would rather everybody stay together, but they recognise the reality of this. So they're also working incredibly positively to try and problem solve both in the Dorset area and the BCP area. So this report, if you like, was the startup report of the partnership, since when things have moved on both with COVID and place-based services. So I suppose what I'd highlight for the future in the run-up to 2021 is we have to be crystal clear about what belongs inside the Dorset arrangements, what belongs inside the BCP arrangements, and what might sit in the middle. And we've been talking about possibly a Pan Dorset programme office, because, for example, the Child Death Overview Panel covers Dorset, BCP and Somerset. It has to reach a critical mass of work to be viable under legislation. The Youth Offending Service is Pan Dorset. The Regional Adoption Agency is Pan Dorset. So it's never going to be entirely one or the other, but that balance we've got to get right. And the reason for a smooth passage is because we're carrying out updating safeguarding training all the time. It's crucial that new staff who come in, they might be newly qualified social workers, new police officers, new teachers, new DSLs, designated safeguarding leads in schools. All of them need safeguarding training pretty much from the word go, because you may only come across a situation 2 or 3 times in your working year, but you've got to have a framework for understanding it. So that'll be our work over the next few months. So I think the fact that we've put the partnership together, the executive have shown tremendous commitment, the executive being the 2 councils, Health and the Police, and in legislation they're equal partners, not yet equal partners in funding, but hopefully that will come, but equal partners, but all have taken terrific responsibility for this. Sometimes it's delegated to more junior managers, but not in Dorset, not in BCP and not in Health and the Police. You've put your most senior leaders forward because you take safeguarding seriously. So, Chair, I'll stop at that point.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you for finding time to be with us this morning, and really obviously grateful for all the work you've done in helping us get to where we are. You know, I've got Molly Rennie. Molly Rennie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say just a huge thank you. This report's come at a really good time. We've just had our figures from one of our partners, Date, who do the domestic abuse intervention training, which is not a commission service. And I actually sent an email to Teresa. This working together and our plan to go forward with all partners was very obvious that it's working. We've just had our last figures, as I said, and noticeably the number of referrals to date from social workers and people from children's services was way up this time. Obviously our numbers had decreased for the courses because smaller numbers having to work online, that sort of thing, but there was a noticeable increase with referrals coming through Dorset Council. So this working together and this open door approach, and the fact that you realise that everybody is using all the tools in the toolbox. And I just wanted to say thank you, and to to share that with you.
Well, I'm very grateful, and I think you're Teresa's to be congratulated, and her lead member, for really introducing a conversation-based approach, which basically means that when anybody has a concern, they don't have to fill in a daunting form. They can pick up the phone, send an email, have a conversation before something might become a referral. And that way, you deal with all kinds of anxieties and fears that people have about losing control of the referral, the bureaucracy in having to make it. So the system you're developing is encouraging communication, multi-agency working. And as you've said, in the COVID period, domestic abuse and mental health problems have spiked considerably, not really surprising. And a safeguarding partnership has to look at the detail of that. For example, in the vaccination rollout, there is a possibility in some domestic abuse situations that a coercively controlling partner will deliberately stop their partner being vaccinated, because being vaccinated is your ticket to freedom. And for many vulnerable people, they're being kept at home in a form of slavery, a form of abuse. So the worry about the COVID period is we haven't been able to shine such a strong light on it, what's going on inside these properties, inside these family lives. And so the partnership, I think, has just about managed to avoid some of the potentially really damaging repercussions that could have taken place, thanks to some fantastic multi-agency working and prioritising home visits when that's needed, working virtually when that's possible. It's been quite an ordeal, but I think successfully handled.
Thank you very much for that response, Anthony. Very helpful. I've got no other requests to speak, so I'm going to open this up to the Cabinet. The recommendation is for us to note this report, this very important report. Anyone who wants to contribute, or are we content to accept the report? We agreed?
Agreed, Leader.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Anthony, for joining us once again. Thank you very much this morning.
My pleasure.
Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Now we go back to agenda item 8 now, which is the transformation of planning services, the PAS peer review findings and actions. And I'll hand over to Councillor David Walsh.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Councillor David Walsh, portfolio holder for planning again. Now, with the peer review, our timing might have been confusing to some, but we were very deliberate in having the planning peer review in the midst of transition and transformation of the planning department, rather than the preserved norm of a department already established. We wanted to review assumptions and priorities before they became, that's the way we do things here. We saw it as an opportunity to get independent peer advice at a formative period in our evolution, soon after LGR. PAS, the Planning Advisory Service, considered our timing of the review to be a positive step. The Planning Advisory Service is a local government group programme directly funded by the Department for Communities and Local Government, and specifically it helps local authorities to deliver strong and strategic planning for neighbourhoods and local areas, effective development management and good decision making, accountable and value for money planning services. Now, a review team of fellow local government planning professionals and senior councillors visited Dorset in January, carrying out a series of interviews and workshops with elected members, officers and customers, as well as representatives from town and parish councils. The final report, which you have at Appendix A, sets out 10 key recommendations providing a constructive framework for creating a resilient, customer-focused and effective planning service, necessitating that fit-for-purpose systems and processes are in place to deliver a high-quality service and create the capacity for value-added services. After government reorganisation, there was a need to consolidate legacy software systems onto a single platform because we need to provide a consistent, sufficient and effective management service. Work is now well underway on the new development management software system, which includes building control and land charges on the same platform. The former North Dorset planning records have already migrated onto the new system, and West Dorset is next, with Weymouth and Portland following shortly afterwards. And other legacy council systems will then migrate in 2021. But it is not until that phase of work is completed in spring 2021 that work can then progress on transforming the user experience of our planning portal. The report also highlights the need to tackle backlogs in validation and applications, and this is being addressed through external support, assisting with check-in and technical assessments of applications. The importance of a programme of training and for elected members and parish and town councillors was recognised, and steps have been taken to promote this, and as well as webinars, further events are being planned. I am working very closely with Neil Wedge, the chairman of the DAPTC, to deliver packages of training, as we each have a different role to play. They will be covering the technical side to planning for town and parish councillors, and we will then relate that to the Dorset local plan and policies, both local and national, with relevant training for Dorset councillors. In the times we are currently in financially, an important key recommendation relates to the role of pre-application advice and the use of planning performance agreements, because there is a great potential here for income generation through planning. In response to the initial draft report from the Planning Advisory Service, officers were invited by the review team to prepare an action plan to set out steps that we are now being taken or programmed to address all the recommendations in the peer review. It is clear that the scope of work is significant, and so indicative milestones have been set, which will need to be kept under review as the transformation proceeds. It is therefore recommended that progress on implementation of the action plan be reported to Place and Resources Scrutiny Committee during its implementation, provisionally on a biannual basis. For a local planning authority, large as it is, planning must be an asset. And with the action plan that we showed the peer review team, they were very pleased with our ambition and vision. But no, this will not happen overnight. But when circumstances are different, we will invite the team again to see the progress that we have made through our transformation programme and action plan, because they were very much interested in our innovative work on transformation and wanted to study Dorset Council as an exemplar for councils reorganising into a unitary. Thank you. Welcome to take any questions, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, David. I've got no requests to speak in the chat box, in which case I shall. I think Peter Wharf wants to comment. Peter.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chairman. I was desperately trying to get my RTS in the chat box, but we had discussed beforehand. I wanted to make a couple of points about this. The first is that the bid for transformation funds was made by Councillor Walsh and by the officers in the middle of the pandemic, when we were incredibly busy and everybody worked extremely hard and generally out of their normal hours to put together a bid for transformation funds for the project that David has just talked about. The second thing I wanted to say was that this project is not a business as usual. It is not a normal bringing together 6 councils together, which we saved 10 million.
You're muted, Peter. You're muted. You're still muted, Peter.
Actually, Chairman, I don't think Peter is muted. I think maybe it's the problem with his headphones. Perhaps maybe take his headphones out.
All right.
I've taken my headphones.
Okay.
Right, sorry, my headphones have chosen that particular moment to run out of juice. So
okay.
Yeah, the second point I wanted to make was that this has been implemented as part of our transformation. This is not business as usual, bringing together the 6 councils which saved 10 million. This is a completely new transformative programme which actually uses new and interesting techniques to make the service more effective, more efficient, and to improve consistency across the piece and make it better for customer use. I am really blown away by the effort that Councillor Walsh and the officers have put into this, and this has been in spite of a huge amount of work caused by the difficulties that the pandemic has brought us. There are parts of the programme that are moving ahead very well. There are parts of the programme that are proving to be more difficult. And this is not unlike the council plan. if you set yourself challenging targets, you will do some things better than you expect, some things okay, and some things will prove slightly more difficult. I commend what is being done. I think it's a great job, and I think the outcome will pay for itself in less than 2 years, and it will have been well worth the investment that was made in the teeth of additional government requirements, which cost us a very large amount of money. So my reason for interrupting this particular bit, Chairman, was I wanted to say well done, and this is a really good example of transformative technology and working. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Peter. And while it's fresh in people's minds, I agree with everything you've said, and it really is a good example of what transformation is all about. You know, we have got to transform many of our services into the new council, and this is a really, really good example of that. And all credit, I'll share that view. All credit to everyone who's been involved in it. Cabinet colleagues, we've got the recommendations around the reviewing the findings and the action plan as a result of that. David's made it very clear that we need to get on with this and get these actions in place. Are we content to accept both the recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We now go on to agenda item 9, which is the Dorset Council Local Plan Consultation. And once again, David Walsh.
Thank you very much, Leader. And I say that because this is a good news story. A lot of work has gone into this, many people. So as you've heard me bang on continuously, having an up-to-date local plan in place is critical, because without one, our influence over the character and location of development in our area is very much limited. Having a plan is essential in order to shape the future of Dorset Council area, provide for development to meet the area's needs, and manage decisions on planning applications. Public consultation is a vital part of this process, and this consultation will enable a wide range of views to be taken into account in moving the plan forward. And it is proposed that our public consultation takes place for 8 weeks, starting in mid-January. An amendment to our Statement of Community Involvement, you will have seen at Appendix B, is needed to clarify the approach that Dorset Council will take in consulting on the local plan, because of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, meaning face-to-face consultation events are unlikely to be possible. But in addition to the document and supporting evidence being available online, a range of consultation methods are proposed, including online events, social media, and copies available for loan in libraries. This options consultation document set out as fully as possible the policies and proposals being considered for inclusion in the local plan, and includes questions to encourage people to respond. This is a critical stage of consultation, as it is still early in the process, and the Council will be free to make as many changes as are necessary, following the assessment of the consultation responses and any further evidence. Nothing is set in stone. The next stage will be the preparation of a final draft that will be published in September 2021, as laid out in the revised local development scheme for Dorset, agreed by Cabinet at its meeting on the 8th of September. Then there will be an opportunity for further feedback and comments before being submitted for examination. And at that stage, responses will be considered and assessed by the independent inspector who examines the plan. As I keep saying, we did not start off with a blank piece of paper. This draft has been prepared taking account of the work previously carried out on all the district local plan reviews, the consultation responses made on those reviews, discussion with internal and external stakeholders and service providers, and a range of studies commissioned to inform it. As you are aware, a cross-party informal executive advisory panel of members has met regularly throughout the preparation so far to advise and steer progress. The consultation document, Appendix 1, is structured as the final plan is intended to be in 10 chapters. The introduction, development strategy, environment, housing, economy, community infrastructure, southeastern Dorset area, central Dorset area, northern Dorset area, and the western Dorset area. The consultation document identifies land for a minimum of 30,481 new homes, 1,793 per annum, to be provided over the 17-year period, because national policy states that the government standard methodology must be used to calculate housing needs. It is important to make sure that our plan is likely to be found sound at examination, and to have an up-to-date plan in place as soon as possible. And this means that it needs to follow national policy. The standard methodology, however, is being revised, as proposed through recent government consultations. And so the numbers for our area will change during the course of plan preparation. The consultation draft of the local plan seeks to make provision for the housing required under the current standard methodology, whilst also giving some flexibility to respond to changes in this methodology, to respond to the consultation and to respond to the delivery of sites over the plan period. At examination, not only do we have to prove the land availability for our housing numbers, but also the deliverability of those developments. But this plan is not all about housing development. It puts forward a strategy for sustainable growth, which has 3 objectives, which need to be pursued in mutually supportive ways. An economic objective, making sufficient land and infrastructure available in the right place to support growth, innovation, improved productivity, and the transition to a low carbon economy. The social objective, supporting strong, vibrant, healthy communities, enabling the delivery of homes to meet the need, delivering well-designed, safe places within space to support long-term community well-being. And an environmental objective, protecting and enhancing our natural built and historic environment, helping to improve biodiversity, using natural resources wisely, and mitigating and adapting to climate change. I have already received comments and phone calls from people saying what a good consultation document this is. And for that, I must thank Terry, Hilary, and a large team of people, not just in planning policy, because evidence was drawn from many departments. Leader, I propose the recommendations as laid out in this report, and I'm willing to take any questions.
Thank you very much, David. I'm just looking in the chat box, and I don't see any requests to speak from. Oh, yes, I do. I've got Les Fry. Morning, Les.
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Can you tell me, please, why should people comment on the local plan? What's in it for them? And will the local plan be used and taken note of when it's in place?
What a huge and fantastic question, Councillor Fry. It's almost as if I could have primed you to say that one. This is so huge. This is looking at the future of Dorset. Now, people, we're all very parochial. People live in their parishes, their villages, their towns. And I don't want people just to comment on how it's going to impact their village, parish or town, because people have got to look at this as they are representatives of Dorset. And this is looking at the future of Dorset. Now, some areas don't have a 5-year housing land supply. Now, we have to take this into consideration with planning applications, because as you know, without a 5-year housing land supply, every planning application is taken, the starting point is presumption in favour of acceptance. Now, when you have a single local plan, when we have it eventually, that 5-year housing land supply will be taken for the whole of the area. It won't be impacting on smaller areas. And so that will be beneficial to areas within Dorset. Now, people should comment because this is their chance. As Spencer, our leader, has always said, we want to do things with communities, not do it to communities. And I want as many people as possible to respond to this consultation, so it's a true consultation. There will be things people don't want and things that people do want. And I know it's a big document, but I just hope people go all the way through it, because there are questions that help you all the way through this. And I want them to focus on the future of Dorset. Of course, that will impact on their own smaller area, but this is for the big Dorset area. So,
thank you, David.
Les, oh, sorry, Spencer, I am going on a bit, but no, thank you for the question. But it is important that everybody is part of this consultation and responds.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Les. Good question. Paul Kimber.
Thank you, Spencer and Dave, for your excellent presentation of the local plan, and we've lived with it for quite a time. And in the past, we've usually been quite spoilt by having public meetings that have been put on by the old Dorset County Council and really good leaflets sending out encouraging the public. I just wonder on this occasion, David, you said about a hard copy would be in the libraries. Could also, I'm thinking of the grilling I've had in the past on local plans and local plannings, and especially from areas way out my jurisdiction, whether all councillors could have a hard copy as well. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And you're not the first person to ask this question. I mean, personally, I've printed this off myself at home on my printer, much to the annoyance of my partner. Financially, we haven't really got the finance behind it to give each member a copy. I mean, all members now, because we're using Teams, we're all IT savvy, and we've got the plan on our computers. In libraries, there's, even there with COVID, you borrow one from a library, when you hand it back, it's got to be decontaminated. So we've got to provide libraries with quite a few, so that there isn't just one from each library having to stay in place for 14 days to be decontaminated. So I understand where you're coming from, Paul, and we will do everything we can to help members, because members are such a vital part of this consultation process. But as to providing a paper copy to all councillors, I don't think we're going to be able to do that.
Right, Stella Jones.
Yes, I think everyone said about the importance of listening to public comments, and consultation is so very important. Can we, if we can possibly, have some face-to-face consultation? I know COVID's got in the way, but there are ways of holding consultation out in public parks, get a few gazebos, let people be able to just talk to someone, because not everybody is able to look at it online.
Stella,
Thanks,
I understand that, and thank you. And yes, we are going to do everything we can to make every opportunity to meet with people available. We are going to do lots online, and hopefully people can help other people that aren't so IT savvy be able to look at these webinars that we're going to do. People are going to be fed up with the amount of things we do. And with Nick Ireland's comment earlier, we're going to be doing a webinar, or I'm going to be doing a blog on neighbourhood planning, to encourage people in the smaller villages who want to have local provision or local need, how they can do a neighbourhood plan. So these things are coming forward, and I will do as much as I can, I swear to God, to make this as easy as possible for everybody to comment. So where we are able to do things outdoors, we will. And if there are empty shops that we can put displays in windows, we will do that also.
Thank you, David. David Taylor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, David. Just to welcome this report, to say it's absolutely amazing to see that at long last we are all working together to the direction of making sure we are all involved in our Pan Dorset. I just welcome with huge success. I've watched it very carefully, and to say also the fact is that the councillors, the members, shall we say, of various parishes, like mine, St Mary, it's a vast territory, and five panels to be involved with it as well. And I'd just like to see that this gets out to all parishes as well, because they will know that we're all singing off the same sheet. Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you very much, David.
I didn't actually notice a question in there.
Well, I just think what David's done is reinforce the importance of town and parish councillors getting involved, but we'll do that at the end, David.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Shane Bartlett.
Apologies, leader, trying to get the headphones sorted. Yeah, I just wondered whether or not, in terms of this local plan, that there's going to be a consultation in terms of significant briefings with the town and parish councils that are going to be taken on some of these development areas. You'll remember, leader, that when we did that in predecessor council in East Dorset, the officers there were very good at getting out into the community, into those towns and villages to explain the plan and have those briefings. I see no reason why we couldn't be doing that through the Zoom or with the Teams meetings that we're doing, and I think it would be extremely beneficial. Part of the problem with these local plans is obviously communication. It's taking those town and parish councils with you, so it doesn't come as a shock to them. And I know that officer resource is limited, but I think it would be hugely beneficial to those town and parish councils if we could take them on the journey rather than giving them any shocks down the road.
Thank you very much, Shane. David?
I totally agree. Thank you for that one, Shane. It's as you're just supporting what Spencer has said all the way through. We do it with the community, not to the community. And you're also correct on the resources. As I've said, we're doing the planning peer review. And as you'll hear in the next consultation, presentation, we have some further things to do. This is huge on the local plan, but we do want town and parishes to come along with us, to bring them with us, and to help them understand what's going on with this. So we'll do as much as we can with officers doing webinars and podcasts and whatever. And also, members have got to realise that they're a significant part of this, and so we need to be briefing members so they can go back to their parish and town councils and give them the facts. So I totally agree, Shane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane. David Took.
Thank you, Spencer. I'm very pleased to hear that there's going to be lots of consultation. As Councillor Walsh will know, there is going to be a specific interest from my area, given the radically different alternatives that are being suggested. And we would very much appreciate, I think, a detailed discussion with officers as to the implications behind the different options being presented and what the thinking might be, so that we can get a good handle and give you a well thought through response for your consultation.
Thank you, David. I'm not sure there's a question, but there's a commitment there.
No.
Pick it up.
Yeah,
the question is that I think we need some very detailed discussions rather than just a sort of quick webinar. I think we need some rather more detailed look at what the options are being proposed for Alderholt, because they are radically different between 300 houses on one hand, or possibly 190 if you take what's given and no more, or 3,000 and make us bigger than Shaftesbury on the other.
Thank you, David. If I may answer that one, Spencer.
Yep.
The whole point of this, we can give you some more detail, but there isn't that much detail coming forward with this because this is a consultation and we are asking people a question. We're asking them whether they would like the smaller development of 300 or go larger with 3,000. That's the question there. There will be more detail coming with it, but please remember, nothing is set in stone. As I said previously, when we have the consultation responses, we can make changes to the plan. We're not doing things to anybody. This is a democratic process. But in the democracy, people have got to realise that everyone in Dorset has a vote here and has a say here, and everyone's vote and say carries the same weight. That's where the democracy comes into this. But now I can see, David, and we can give you more detail if it's necessary, but there is no detail as such because it's not fact yet. This is still a consultation and we're asking people, what do you think we should be doing within this area? Because it's their area.
Appreciate that, David. Thank you. But there must be some assumptions behind the suggestions that you're making. There's got to be some that they haven't just been plucked at random. There's got to be some thought and assumption behind them. And we'd like to dig in a little bit as to what those are.
Yeah, it was. I can tell you this. When we had the executive advisory panel and we were looking at doing a larger area, because when I was chairman of the strategic planning forum for Dorset, including BCP, there was always the thought of a new town. Now, in the EAP, people said, where could we do a larger development? And it was because East Dorset local plan had got Alderholt having an extra 1,000 houses, that was the thought of, well, if that can have that, let's look at that further. So this all stems from the East Dorset local plan, which you were part of, obviously, David. So there were areas that we looked at as to what could take more development. That's as far as it went, I assure you. So nothing has been sorted out, nothing's been done and dusted, nothing's been stamped. This is purely consultation. But I can get you any more information that you want.
All right, thank you, David.
Okay, thank you very much. Beryl Lizard.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is a very interesting planning document, and I'm really keen to get people to, be aware of it, sign up to it, do things with it and be part of it, because being part of the Wareham neighbourhood plan, I would encourage lots of town and parish councils that we all report to actually make a neighbourhood plan, because it actually then makes them very aware and understand how the planning works and also how the local government works. So if they get involved and be part of it, it actually makes it so much more interesting, and actually that makes them feel very good about their area and appreciate what's going on. So, and with the emerging, obviously, the perfect local plan going into this, I think, you know, and I was very much a big part of that, as was Laura and Peter and Cherry. So I think that we really do want to encourage other people to take part, be aware, actually try and understand what's going on and see what the problems are when you know you're trying to be parochial and say not in my backyard. So I think it's so important to encourage everybody, all the members, to go back to their town and parish councils if they haven't already got a neighbourhood plan, to actually start one and be part of it themselves. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much, David. Very good document.
Thank you, Beryl. And I'd just like to, I totally agree with you. I've been neighbourhood plan champion for my area since Mr. Pickles had the idea. But people have got to realise that neighbourhood plans are to promote development within your area. They're to give the local people, local community, a chance to promote the future of their area. Neighbourhood plans do not stop development. They promote the development that you want within your area. But I'm willing to talk to anybody, any of the parish councils, on doing a neighbourhood plan. So thank you, Beryl.
Thank you very much, David. I've got Les Fry wants to come back a second time. Les?
Thank you, Chair. David, the local plan, the local plan basically works around the numbers of housing that the government are directing us to build. Why do we have to follow that directive, and can we not ignore that and choose to build what we want, where we want to build them?
Another good question, Liz. I've always been, when I've been up to the TCPA, I represent you all on the New Communities Group in government, and I'm always promoting build what we need, where we want it. But the problem is, when we go to examination, we have to prove to the examiner that we have the housing numbers, not only the area to build those houses, but as I've said previously, the deliverability of those numbers, because the examiner is going to say, you've got this number of numbers, but the standard methodology says you should have this number of numbers. So if we are not conforming with standard methodology at the examination, then we can fail. And if we fail, we have no local plan. And if we have no local plan, we have very little say in saying what development goes where. So your point about the right houses in the right place, yes, I totally advocate that. Without a plan, we cannot ensure that. So with the standard methodology, the government consultation documents that are going in now, they're looking to change that. Now, if they make the numbers higher, then we have to show that we've got sites that we can do that with. And we have. We've covered both sites of methodology. Now, if the numbers drop, now we're after our MPs to go and challenge this standard methodology. And if they can get the numbers dropped, then we can drop certain allocations. But we have to be there on the day at examination when the examiner says, can you produce the number of houses the government says you have to? We can say yes. And in that way, we'll have a successful plan which will be adopted. If we have to say, no, we can't, it won't be accepted. It won't be adopted. We'll be without a plan.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you very much for your question. Well, I've got no other request to speak from those are not on the cabinet, so I'm going to now give the cabinet colleagues, and there's quite a number who wish to contribute to this debate. Peter Wharf.
Thank you, Chairman. A number of comments. The first is that members of the public may not be aware that peer reviews are normally conducted by our peers from other authorities. They're extremely useful, and they're normally conducted when you've reached a certain stage in progress. When we conducted the recovery and reset, which I was in charge of, and now David is doing the peer review or commissioning it in here, we have quite deliberately commissioned peer reviews at the outset rather than after we've achieved something. And the point of that is it's been said on a number of occasions that's very brave, but it's very helpful because it tells us whether we're starting out from the right point, and it doesn't stop us from doing a peer review at a later point. So for members of the public, this is actually quite unusual. It's quite brave, has been said to us, and it's really helpful. My second point, which is a question to David, is that there are a number of neighbourhood plans in process, and I would like David to confirm the fact that we're in the middle of developing an overall local plan will not lessen the impact and the notice taken of neighbourhood plans, but will make them just as valid, and should not be treated as a reason for stopping neighbourhood planning. They will still be an extremely important part of the process. David, perhaps you could answer that when I've finished the other points I want to make. The third point is, in my role, my portfolio role, we are looking at meetings of councillors, and we will certainly consider going to hybrid meetings at some stage, but certainly not yet, and we're going to have to wait. And I suspect that consideration will drive when we can have face-to-face meetings with members of the public. Believe you me, I hardly know a single councillor who doesn't want to meet members of the public face-to-face, but we will be driven by the legislation and what we do. I want to just make a point about consultation. This is not just consultation for its own sake. The plan that has been put forward are suggestions, and they will be altered as a result of the consultation and the various things that we consider as a result of your input. So this is not something that you should treat as, oh, well, there's no point, it's going to happen. This is a genuine consultation which will lead to a full-scale review and modification as and where appropriate. So I really commend everybody to concentrate and to get everybody to concentrate and to consult as much as possible. And my final point, which I would just like David to confirm is correct, is that councillors, you have a two horses to ride in this particular exercise. You need to look at this as an issue for Dorset Council as a whole, and we expect you to think as a Dorset councillor as a whole, but also you need to work with your town and parish councils and your local groups, and you need to represent them in terms of their interests and their desires. And that will occasionally lead to areas where there are conflicts between what you need to do for Dorset Council as a whole and what you need to do as an individual local representative. And, you know, David took, etc. I recognise that this is going to be an issue and it's going to be a strain. That's part of the process. We recognise that. The important thing is that councillors recognise that they are actually have two quite different roles which may conflict, and members of the public need to recognise that councillors will have to take all of this into account when arriving at their decisions on the local plan. And they will just be one of many consultees. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Peter. David, there's a few points in there.
Yes, there were. And the ones for me, neighbourhood planning, yes, because neighbourhood plans are an important part of our planning DPD, which is the planning development document. Now, that includes the local plan and neighbourhood plans, national policy, local policy. So these are a huge part of it. And so I do encourage people, as I've said, to promote development within their areas. If they've got a need, a local housing need, please come forward with it. But as with the villages and that, nothing's going to be pushed onto the villages. Most development is going around the major towns, which helps with climate change and the distance people have to travel to work. Riding two horses, yes, that's a very important point, because we are all in our local areas and we're all representing our local constituents. And it's difficult for us to make the people that we are representing see the bigger picture in places where they might not have even heard of that place. Now, there's possibilities of developing in Dorchester. There's possibilities of north of Dorchester. There's possibilities of developing in Alderholt. Now, we don't just need the people in Alderholt saying we don't want any development here and that's the end of it. And the same with north of Dorchester. We need people looking at the big picture, because as we've said, we need to deliver 30,000 houses across Dorset. So where should they go? It's not a case of saying they're not going to go anywhere, but not near me. Well, they've got to go somewhere. So where are the best places? We should be looking at this all together collectively to see the best way of bringing Dorset forward. The problem with that is if we don't, and I've had experience working in the Lake District where it was called planning by appeal. Developers would come forward a development wasn't suitable, and knowing they were going to be refused, and knowing that they could then go to appeal. The appeal inspector would say, well, you haven't got enough development in your area, so yes, I'll agree this planning permission. We have to have control of our area, and that means being grown up without being patronising to anybody. We have to deliver that sort of development. And believe it or not, Dorset does need development, all sorts of development, housing, infrastructure. All people are concentrating on here is housing. It's not just about housing. How do we protect our environment? How do we work within it? There's many things this local plan looks at, so please don't get people just constrained with the housing parts. Look at the whole plan. It's an excellent piece of work. Sorry for ranting, Spencer. I get a bit passionate about this.
Thank you, David. I know you have passion for the project. Councillor Jill Haynes. Jill, where are you?
Having the unmute issue, as usual. Councillor Jill Haynes, I hold the portfolio for community and customer services. I was on Friday last week at speaking at the AGM for the Dorset Association of Town and Parish Councils, and they particularly asked me to ask some questions, which are basically the questions that David's been asked already. So I'm not going to ask the poor man to keep talking. I think you've made a really good job of this, David, and I think that you have answered the questions that people will want to know how they can be involved, and actually how there can be individual ownership of this, because I think that's really important, that people understand that it is their plan for their Dorset, and that's the thing that we have to be involved with. One thing that the DAPTC did ask me to do, and I wondered if you could do that, please. They'd like a timeline, a bit more about, so I've explained to them when the consultation is likely to be and how long, but they'd like a timeline as to after the consultation, what happens next, and when hopefully we might have this plan in place. So the bit that they're concerned about is other opportunities to comment. Is that a second consultation? If you could just explain that, that would be very helpful.
Thank you very much, Jill. And I have been working very closely with the DAPTC and Neil Wedge, and I'm always in constant communication with Peter Bowyer through questions and answers. Now, as we've said, the next stage will be the preparation of a final draft that will be published in September 2021, end of next year, as laid out in the revised local development scheme for Dorset, agreed by Cabinet at its meeting on the 8th of September. And then there will be an opportunity for further feedback and comments before being submitted for examination at that stage. Responses will be considered and assessed by the independent examiner who examines the plan. Now, we have the timeline within the local development scheme for Dorset, which is on our website. I can send you it separately, Councillor Haynes, but just so everybody knows, it is there on the website under the local development scheme, which had to be revised because of COVID on the 8th of September. So that is there, but I'll send you a copy through personally.
It's not me personally that's particularly after it, but if you could send it to Neil Wedge to make sure that, or the link to Neil Wedge, that's very helpful.
Thank you, I certainly will.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you, Jill, for the question. There are no other questions, colleagues, and we've had a fairly long series of questions, some good questions this morning. The recommendations are in 3 parts, so can we agree that we're going to go out to consult the public, as David has eloquently outlined, on our emerging Dorset local plan? Can we agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to agenda item 10 now, which are recommendations for the allocation of developer contributions for enhancement of recreation and community infrastructure provision in Dorchester, and that's David Walsh.
Thank you, Leader. I won't introduce myself this time. So the recommendation for the allocation of developer contributions for the enhancement of recreation and community infrastructure provision in Dorchester. Now, in Dorchester, the council has collected significant recreational related financial contributions through the Poundbury development, and other schemes have provided a top-up for related community infrastructure purposes. Contributions have been secured by way of Section 106 legal agreements, which, as you all know, provide parameters for their use, including the type of infrastructure and the location which it serves. By 2016, almost £2 million has been collected specifically for recreation and community-related infrastructure in Dorchester. And as a result, a bespoke officer member panel was established by West Dorset District Council to invite and assess proposals for funding. The panel made recommendations which resulted in over £500,000 being awarded towards infrastructure projects, including Shire Hall, the enhancement of Dorset County Museum, Dorchester Town Football Club, 3G pitch, and the relocation of Dorchester Boxing Club. The panel disbanded in March 2019 prior to local government reorganisation, with a legacy of approximately £1.5 million of commitments to other projects in Dorchester, including £1 million towards Maltings Arts, the Maltings Arts Trust, and Poundbury Great Field, the Duchy of Cornwall. We reformed the officer member panel to review these commitments in light of changes that had occurred since March 2019. And the panel met in October to review the financial position outlined in the report before you. The panel resolved to reconfirm the predecessor council's funding commitments to the Great Field project, which would see significant investments in formal and informal play and recreation equipment and facilities. Once completed, it will become Dorchester's largest formal open space, helping to serve the needs of the town. After hearing that the Maltings Arts Centre project had been formally abandoned after difficulties in raising investment, the panel recommended that the Arts in Dorchester, Thomas Hardy School joint venture, receives the £1 million funding previously committed to the Maltings Art project. But that recommendation was on the basis that a comprehensive business plan would be submitted and agreed before the transfer of any funding. Details of the business case required are set out in this report. On recommendation 1, the Cabinet agrees the recommendations of the members panel that 106 developer contributions for community infrastructure collected in Dorchester be awarded as followed. Now, as I've said, 1A, Great Field, Poundbury, new recreation facilities, 4,555. Now, 1B, the Arts in Dorchester project, improvements to municipal buildings and Thomas Hardy School Theatre to provide enhanced performance space and associated facilities, £1 million. But this is on the caveat, payment subject to the submission of a comprehensive business case to be approved by the Executive Director for Place in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning. So, thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, David. I've got Andy Canning's request to speak. Andy?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, as someone who's been involved with this for over the last 4 years at West Dorset District Council initially, and being chairman of the member panel that was referred to in Councillor Walsh's talk, I just wanted to have a few words really just to add to the report. This is a very important development for Dorchester, I think. We've all worked very hard to find something that would really work for the town, and we were all very disappointed when the Maltings project didn't get to go ahead with the £1 million we'd set aside for that, for the arts. But I think it is a really good job what the Dorchester Arts people and the Thomas Hardy School have come up with a project that basically tries to replicate what the Maltings would have had, but on 2 different sites. So principally, there'll be a 400+ seat theatre at Thomas Hardy's, and the Corn Exchange in Dorchester will be refurbished and developed with new seating to accommodate approximately 200 people for events in the Corn Exchange. This is a good example of project partnership working together. Dorchester Town Council is putting in £250,000 of its own money for the Corn Exchange refurbishments, and the Thomas Hardy School are putting in £600,000 of their resources as well. So it is making sure that we get the best value for what financial resources we've got, to make sure that the town ends up with admittedly two venues rather than the one, but that are capable of holding very different sized audiences and really putting that forward for the good of the town. And it has the full support of the Town Council, Thomas Hardy School, and unanimous support of the councillors that worked on the member panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Stella Jones.
Yes, as the council's representative on the Dorchester Arts, I'd like to support this. And while we say Dorchester Arts, Dorchester Arts covers a large area around Dorchester, even down to Weymouth. It is for many, many people. and they hope to support and develop opportunities for all sectors of the community. It's not just one type of art, it's for all type of art, for all people in the whole area, not just in Dorchester.
So, thank you, Stella. Les Fry.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to support what Councillor Canning and Councillor Jones have both said. This is a really good project. I was disappointed when the Maltings project didn't go ahead. That was inspirational, really good. But actually, we can do differently. We've got a good plan B now involving Thomas Hardy School and the Arts Centre. And I think this is exciting for everybody in the west of Dorset or further afield that can come into future projects. It's also a good link up with Thomas Hardy School, which will improve their facilities as well. So it really is a big win-win, and I hope the Cabinet will support this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. I've got nobody else. There's no other request to speak in the chat box, so I'll open it up to the Cabinet. Cabinet colleagues, anyone wish to make a contribution? Or can we agree the recommendation set out in the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very
Agreed.
much. That sounds like a really good set of projects. So we move on then. Go on to agenda item 11 now, which is the Parking Service Phase 1 project report. I'll hand over to Ray Bryan.
Thank you, Leader. Members, this year we've seen a dramatic reduction in the required revenue obtained from car parks across the Dorset Council area to maintain and run car parks network and highways infrastructure. We're currently looking at a £3 million loss of revenue that's been collected through car park charges year to date. However, our costs have remained the same. The current report recommends the Cabinet approves changes to parking charges and charging hours. A is to increase the all-day charge from £2 to £4 in Lyme Regis and West Bay. B is to extend morning charges in Purbeck to 8 AM. C was to implementation of Sunday charges without delay. And D was to extend the evening charges to 8 PM. However, we had a very good debate on this with scrutiny on the 1st of December. And I have to say the input from members was very good. We have listened to those comments, and I'm therefore setting out some changes to the recommendations on the paper before you. We are therefore proposing that on A, we increase the all-day charge from £2 to £8 in Lyme Regis and West Bay. This will bring them in line with other seaside areas such as Swanage and Weymouth and deal with what has been a major anomaly in parking charges at seaside resorts. For some detail, the current charges in Lyme Regis and West Bay, I am told, have not been reviewed since 2014. Hence, the charge has not risen with inflation and does not meet the current costs. These areas are tourist destinations, and therefore the impact of the charge will be primarily on tourists and not on Dorset Council residents. There are alternative car parks in Lyme Regis where the charges are substantially more than the DC car park. Excuse me. For example, Lyme Regis Council charged £25 for a 3-day ticket, which equates to slightly more than the £8 I'm proposing. Or they charge £1 per hour. NCP charges £7.20 for between 2 to 4 hours, and currently they charge £12 for a day's car parking. If I look at Area B, which was the extend the morning charges in Purbeck to 8 AM, I propose we leave that as it is. On item C, the implementation of Sunday charging, what we're going to do on this is that we'll go ahead as recommended, but at the request of any relevant town or parish council, Dorset Council will consider the case for suspending car park charges on a Sunday to enable a local event to be held. In such cases, agreement to do so would be at the sole discretion of Dorset Council, and each individual case will be considered on its merits. These provisions would apply only in exceptional circumstances and on a limited number of occasions in a year. Item D, which is extended the evening charges to 8 PM, I am deferring to phase 2, so that will not be on our recommendations list. This will help local businesses and looking after the evening economy. These changes will allow for continuing investment in our car parks without the need to ask Dorset Council for extra money, bearing in mind the growing need for more electrical vehicle charging as the growth of sales of electrical cars continues to grow. In phase 2, we are looking at growth in park and ride, plus looking at facilities for RV applications. Those are the mobile caravans that we see driving around, and parking stations. All of this will fit in with our climate change plans. I would add that as part of phase 2 review, we are looking at both shoppers car park permits, which is currently out for consultation, but also residents parking permits. We'll also be looking at on-street parking and the way we deal with permitted parking on Dorset roads. We are looking at 3 tier levels of car park charges: seaside areas, tourist towns and other areas. When the phase 2 review is complete, we will consult all partners. We have this year so far suspended all charges through the first lockdown. We have given up car park revenue to allow businesses to spread out onto pavements and highways to gain any businesses available by pedestrianising large areas. We have allowed free car parking in all town car parks on Saturdays in the lead up to Christmas. And finally, just so everybody is aware, we are continuing to allow free parking in Dorset Council car parks for NHS and care workers whilst on duty and upon display of a relevant permit, or if they have registered, has been extended. Sorry, as long as they have registered, this has been extended now until December the 31st. The concession on this will end on the 1st of January 2021. The recommendations are then that A, we increase all day charges from £2 to £8 in Lyme Regis and West Bay. B, we extend the charges from 8 AM to 8 AM. On C, we implement Sunday charges with the details I've already outlined. And D, we remove this recommendation and defer it to phase 2. I put that proposal to members.
Thank you very much, Ray. I've got a number of colleagues in the chat box. Before I open it up, though, I will allow the chairman of the Place and Resources Scrutiny Committee to comment first. Councillor Shane Bartlett.
Thank you, Leader. I'm grateful that the portfolio holder has listened to those comments that come from the Scrutiny Committee meeting. It came before the Place and Resources Scrutiny Committee on the 1st of December, and obviously phase 1 is the notice of intent to make those changes. Phase 2 will be a much bigger consultative exercise that will come next year at a later date. The item was debated fully. The portfolio holder is in accordance with, I think, much of the discussion that went on within the committee. There was basically a level of support in terms of points A, B, and C. There was a discussion of whether C should actually take place, with those charges aren't taking place at the moment on Sunday, that should be taken to phase 2. But it's obviously a decision of the portfolio holder if he wants to bring that forward now. And point D obviously is a problem all market towns in Dorset have. In the late 20th century, when the late 19th century, when we went through the golden age of the railway, our market towns expanded with significant residential areas being built, but there was no provision for the modern motor car because it wasn't envisaged that would be in place. And so that has contributed to significant difficulties with on-street parking, with virtually no off-street parking in most of our market towns in those old railway parts of those towns. So I'm pleased to see that that is going to go into consultation exercise for next year, and it's not going to be part of the current proposals that were on the table. So I think the only thing I've got left to say, Leader, is I'd just like to thank the Executive Director for Place, John Selgren, and the portfolio holder, Councillor Bryant, for making themselves available for additional questioning outside of the meeting, as well as their input in the meeting. And also my thanks go to Matt Prosser and Elizabeth Murray and Paul Hutton, the officers and those officers behind the scenes that compiled the report for my committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane. So our first councillor is Andy Canning. Andy.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to begin by thanking Councillor Bryan for listening. I feel this has been a very important step forward in making sure that the new system of scrutiny works effectively on the council, and that clearly backbench members are able to make a difference to things that are going on when we feel that they're not right, and particularly the proposal to to charge in the evenings, and really welcome the withdrawal of that. I'm not entirely sure about what you're saying about Sundays, but I think I presume we can negotiate outside of this meeting between those who manage and run the car boot sales in Dorchester and Bridport and the council, because as I've said previously, they are important sources of fundraising for local charities, and we don't want to put anything like that under threat. Because let's face it, if they weren't raising the money this way, they'd be coming to the council for funding instead, and obviously we don't have the resources to do that. So I think, as I say, this is an important step forward, and I think also we've had discussions amongst the Liberal Democrat group as well, and we would certainly be happy to countenance a rise in the across the board car parking charges, because we do recognise that there is a problem with lack of funding going forward, and that we've taken a big hit this year, and we do need more revenue. So we do appreciate the pressure the authority is under to provide for extra funding, and certainly an increase of something in the order of 5%. We feel would be entirely reasonable, bearing in mind that most car parking charges have not gone up for an awful long time, particularly in the west side of the council, where I think it was 2014 was the last increase that took place anywhere. But I think also going on to phase 2, I think it's important that we have a holistic approach. I know the points that Councillor Bryan made, but I think also we need to be looking at residents parking again, and seeing whether there's room to increase the amount of residents parking there is across the authority. And also whether on-street parking charges need to be looked at as well as off-street charges. I think there is a huge body of work to be done, and hopefully the overview committee can have a big say in working with Councillor Bryan to review the whole process and make sure we come up with a policy that works for the council in terms of revenue, but doesn't threaten businesses and enables us to work forward successfully. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Beryl Izzard.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thanks, Ray. I welcome some of your recommendations and the changes that you've made. I mean, in the light of reducing the use of cars, we've got to be seen to be doing something to put off car use, but obviously it is difficult in rural areas such as Purbeck and in lots of places in Dorset. So I think that you've got to offset that against, obviously how charges are made. I was just wondering, there's 3 parts to my question. Purbeck Park, which was formerly known as the Norden Park and Ride, where does that fit into this equation? Because it's sort of a tourist destination, but it is the only real parking for Corfe Castle as well. And it's obviously the Swanage Railway rely on that totally for lots of their tourists. But I would like to know what the charges are proposed for there. That's one question. The other thing is, nobody seems to brought up on this paper, and I wasn't able to come to the scrutiny meeting, unfortunately. But how much will the wardens cost for this extra cover, especially for Sundays? Because won't that offset or counter, nullify the extra income? Thank you.
So Ray, there's 2 questions in there. Do you want to comment?
Yes, if I may. First of all, can I deal with the issue of Norden? That will be in phase 2, and I'm very keen that we relook at all park and rides and actually grow them. I think that's important. And as far as your last question, which I'm now trying to recall exactly what it was. Oh yes, are we going to deal with these as how will we deal with touristy towns? They will again be looked at in phase 2. I've got this thought at the moment that we need to deal with tourist towns very differently to how we deal with the seaside towns. And as I say, this will form a major part of the review. And the last point you raised was on how we're going to cover the costs for sort of the enforcement. Well, obviously, most of the costs for enforcement are covered by the PCN notices that we actually issue. But all of these have been taken into account in the calculation as to what we need to do. There are still some charges we will have to pick up as we make these charges, increased charges if it's agreed. And of course, things like changing of the machines and everything, changing of signage, have all been looked at and are all taken into account on trying to raise the revenue that I need. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Thank you very much, Ray. Thank you. Yes, it does.
Thank you, Beryl. Sarah Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the changes to West Bay, which is now, rather than being doubled, is now quadrupled to £8 for parking all day. Councillor Bryan mentioned this will mostly affect tourists. My worry and my concern is it will affect workers who tend to be on quite a low pay, who have to drive into West Bay to work because of lack of public transport provision, with a bus being once every 2 hours. What provision can be made for these workers so that they are not their wage £8? I mean, if they get paid maybe £50 a day, so that's probably a fifth to a quarter of their wages after tax on parking.
Thank you, Sarah. Ray, I'd like to comment.
Yes. Yep, all this was taken into account when we looked at this, and obviously we're going to be introducing the residence permit, but also a workers permit for people coming into the area. I'm willing to look at anything that we feel we need to amend as we go forward on phase 2, and hopefully we won't see the effect that's happening that you're looking at. I do believe that we need to encourage people to come into the towns to work, and I've taken on board what you've said, and I'll discuss with the team how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, if this is coming in phase 1, this needs to be dealt in phase 1 and not wait for phase 2.
Yeah, as I said, Councillor William, if you can just give me a chance to look at it, and then I'll come back to you with an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Daryl Turner. Daryl.
Thank you, Chairman. I lost my head. Hang on, let's get this right.
Right, there you are.
Thank you. Yeah, no, broadly welcomed. I'm quite pleased with most of this, to be fair. I think it highlights the complexity of what seemed like a simple issue in the first instance. Little worried about driving cars onto our back streets, particularly in Lyme, because there's lots of issues with locals and parking spaces, but we need to manage that. Andy's already mentioned the residence parking permits and areas, which I think we need to look more closely at as well in Lyme. Really do like, it's a strange thing to say, but I really do like the higher increases in the car parking charges in Lyme, because it will encourage our parking rides, and that's key, I think, to reducing hunting for car parking spaces. It's key on making the parking rides more viable and producing less pollution within the towns. Absolutely excellent. The stopping of the 6 to 8 charge in the current situation, totally agree with, more than happy with that. So overall, one happy councillor from Lyme Regis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Molly?
Yes,
Molly Rennie?
Thank you very much, Andy. actually said such a lot of it that makes perfect sense, and I agree with a lot of what he said. But with Ray, I would like to know more of the detail around the car boot parking for Dorchester and the fact that the town councils will have to request it. So I'm making an assumption, which you should never do, that we may lose as towns our opportunity to have 5 any days of our choosing through the year. Our car boot sale is every Sunday, and so I would like to, as Vice Chairman of the Markets Committee, and we have a meeting next week, I would like some sort of discussion about where we are going forward with this, and the Markets Panel to be part of the consultation. But like all the councillors, understand and welcome this, and hooray, the 6 to 8 has gone.
Thank you, Molly. Ray, do you want to pick up on this Sunday comment?
Yes, please, if I may. Councillor Rennie has already identified this to me on a previous conversation, and can I suggest that she comes and talks to myself and Matthew Piles and Paul, and we'll find a way around it. We've already said that we will consider different things on Sundays in different areas, and I'm perfectly prepared to deal with that after this meeting, and I'll make sure that we deal with it properly.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank
Kate
you.
Weller. Thank you, Molly. Kate Weller. Kate.
Thank you, Chairman. And a couple of questions, and Ray, forgive me if you've covered these at scrutiny meetings and so on, which I was unable to attend. The first is the timing on the review and the remit of the review. I'm getting an awful lot of requests from residents around Weymouth Harbour asking when they're going to be discussing future traffic restrictions around there, and I don't have any answers. They just want to be part of any discussion, so if at some point you could give me an idea of timing, then I can say look out for it in February, March, or whenever it is, just so that they know that they haven't been forgotten and that you will be talking to them. And the other is a very, very minor thing, and it's a diminishing problem, sadly. Our aldermen in Weymouth receive free parking permits in a selected number of car parks in the town. They haven't been renewed this year, and they're concerned, particularly churchgoers, people who go to church in Weymouth, and we've got a couple of aldermen who are church wardens, and it's costing them really rather a lot of money to go and do their duties in the churches because they no longer have a permit. And I just wondered, it was a courtesy to our aldermen always. Has it been withdrawn? If it has, I think that's a shame because, as I say, aldermen are a dying breed, I hate to say, so it won't be forever if we do extend this a little further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Ray?
Yeah, if I can just deal with the alderman ones first. Yes, the alderman's permit was withdrawn because, quite seriously, it's not fair to everybody. And what we're trying to do here is create fairness across the area. Can also point out that the parking review actually started in March 20, in fact in February 2020. It seems a long time ago now with what's happened, what else has happened. So this review is ongoing. These are just some things that we brought to Cabinet as an interim, and full consultation will take place with the town and parish councils as we look at the review going forward. That I can promise you.
Thank you, Ray.
If I may, Chairman, it's the emergency restrictions that we brought in during the summer, and I don't want to rub salt in wounds or anything else, Councillor Bryan, absolutely not. But residents around that area are concerned that if we consider doing it again, they would like to be involved in that. Many of them, as you know, were very, very favourable, many weren't, but they don't feel that they're being involved in any decision making. So if we can just try to address that so that we are absolutely inclusive, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
If I may, Leader, can I just put Councillor Weller's mind at rest? We will be talking to everybody. We've got some plans that we're looking at the moment. Perfectly happy to discuss those with you as we get them to the final stages, but everybody will be consulted. I have to say, the harmonisation we did in Weymouth actually turned out to be quite successful. It certainly helped the businesses. It cost us a few bob to do. Not just the loss of revenue, but the rest of the work we had to do in setting it up. And I just think it's something we need to consider going forward. So yes, Councillor Weller, I will make sure that residents, town councils are all included as we do this. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Now, there aren't any other requests to speak other than Jonathan. I'm going to come to Jonathan Mayer first, and then I'll let Jill Haynes comment because it's in her portfolio. Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Leader. This was particularly around the structure of the recommendation, which is now in 3 parts, A, B and C. And I just wanted to comment on the law, first of all, around charging for car parking, because it's perfectly lawful for the council to charge for car parking as part of your approach to managing traffic effectively. Charging for car parking isn't a simple revenue raising measure. We can't increase charges simply to generate money. And a really good illustration of that was the comments made by Councillor Darrell Turner, where he spoke about increasing the charges in Lyme Regis, then encouraging people to use the park and ride. So it's got to be grounded in traffic management. So my first suggestion, Leader, was that the recommendation should be prefaced by saying that as part of managing traffic effectively, and then A, B and C. And then the second issue is, of course, car parking changes can generate controversy outside the council. There might be people who would look to trip us up over the process that we follow. So I was going to suggest as an additional recommendation that in relation to A, B and C, that the portfolio holder for highways, travel and environment, after consulting with the Director of Place, be given delegated authority to decide on the further process to be followed and have authority to take any and all further decisions and steps necessary to introduce the changes that are being agreed today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I think that clarifies it extremely well. It fits with the law and it gives some good advice at the end around managing beyond today. Ray, are you comfortable with that?
I'm very comfortable with it, and thank you, Jonathan, for your input.
And Tony Ferrari, I think you seconded the amendments. You content? He hasn't said anything. Jill Haynes.
Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to second it if you can't get hold of Tony Ferrari on this one.
Okay.
I did put in the chat bar that the Dorchester Markets area is my portfolio. Therefore, I would like to be involved in that one. I don't believe there is an issue because I think it's part of the way we work for the Charter, and we actually have an agreement for this for them to be able to use it on a Sunday anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think if we could just go through that, that'd be really helpful.
Okay, thank you very much.
I haven't got any chair if I am.
Oh, hello, Tony.
Get there.
Yeah, it's all right. Thanks. I know you seconded earlier, but Jill specifically wanted to comment about the impact on the market area, so that was fine. I've got no other speakers. We've had some good questions, an awful lot of support, and congratulations to Ray for reviewing the situation and also to Scrutiny for the valuable work that they inputted into reaching where we are today, and to Jonathan in tidying up the recommendation. So given the amendments as amended, as tidied up by Jonathan, can we agree?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much, everyone. let's go on now to agenda item 12, permission to procure and award Healthy Homes Dorset 2020 contract, and I'll hand over to Tony Ferrari.
Thank you, Chair. Tony Ferrari, portfolio holder for economic development and assets. Can I start with a process apology? This didn't appear in good time on the forward plan and hasn't been through scrutiny, and the reason for that is that we have been forced to work in a timescale by central government, and so have to deal with this as rapidly as we can. So but this is concerning round 1A of the Government Green Homes Grant Local Authority Delivery Initiative, and if it looks like there's going to be a round 1B or 2, we'll come back to scrutiny and talk to them about how we might want to deal with this. If it's a once-off, it's probably a once-off, but if it turns into a regular process, we need to be more formal with it. So thank you for the process comment. Dorset had already a programme in place under delegation to deliver small-scale improvements to individual homes. So things like cavity wall insulation and loft insulation. We were proposing to deliver that via Healthy Homes Dorset and existing frameworks. And in order for us to achieve the timescales that government have given us for a new grant, which are we have to deliver the works by the end of March next year, the only way we can realistically do that is to just use the same mechanisms we were already using. So this paper is a request for authority to authorise 1.5 million to go through those mechanisms to do a variety of home improvements. Now the grant itself is only 859k, but we wanted to give some headroom in case there was more money available, so that's why we've come forward for this sum. I heartily commend the improvements it will make. It will improve the carbon footprint of Dorset because the same amount of heating can be delivered for less energy. It will improve the health outcomes because colder homes will be warmer, and it will reduce bills for residents in properties where we implement it. So an entirely welcome set of outcomes, and I recommend the paper to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please have questions.
Thank you very much, Tony. Well, I don't see any requests to speak in the chat box from colleagues that are not on the Cabinet. So I'm going to move on to, I think, Jill, did you not want to comment? Oh, sorry, I've got one now. I've got Cherry Brooks.
Thank you. Yeah, Tony, this is about upgrading homes to green energy, but there seems to be a gap in the funding at the moment of what is available for people that are doing self-build housing and allowing them to access some sort of grant funding towards putting in greener systems, and so that is therefore pushing them towards the older form of heating. So I'm just wondering whether or not there's anything that we can do. I think it's to do with the guidance issued by the government, but I wondered if there was anything to do to feed that upwards, because there does seem to be a gap there.
The guidance is specific in that this is retrofitting. It's not a new build scheme, but I would be happy to feed that comment back because we want to encourage people to do the right things in new build, not the wrong things. So I'm very happy to feed that comment back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Shane Bartlett.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It was just basically a comment that if I could have a conversation outside the meeting with Councillor Ferrari and with the Director of Place so that we can have a discussion around this. I appreciate the fact that due to time constraints it couldn't come before scrutiny, but if we could have a conversation, maybe then we can fit it into our forward plan, particularly if this is an ongoing situation, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that, Shane. Paul Kimber.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tony, for the work you've done on this. what I wanted to ask was on a previous system, I know I was dealing with an old age pensioner and who badly needed some sort of heating, let alone central heating. The time it took for it to come through was amazingly long to jump over all the various hoops. Now I know we have to be cautious that it doesn't, we're not exactly giving money away to those that can afford it, but have you examined how long an application could take to delivery? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
The timescale on this one will be amazingly short. We have to deliver this by March. There will not be an opportunity for delay. What that will mean, of course, is that we can't deal with the more complicated cases. So we are going to be looking for homes that have the best payback fastest are from cavity wall insulation and loft insulation, which isn't to say they're the only things we're going to do, but that will be a lot of what we do. And new heating systems and schemes like that are big and complicated, we won't be able to achieve within the timescale, I think. So it's not to rule anything out, but that our focus will be on a relatively limited number of high delivery routes to improve people's homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Beryl Izzard.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of things here. This is really, really welcome. And I know when Purbeck had some of these awards and grants, it really did make a difference. And I think that actually, you know, we shouldn't be just looking at loft insulation. We should be looking at solar panels if possible on things to reduce energy bills. But also, will this actually cover greening up, as I would say, and adaptations for disabled? Would that actually help to make those a bit more, you know, green or climate change actually orientated? And also, will there be a leaflet awareness campaign available for people to know that this is available? And will it be delivered through a contractor or Citizens Advice? Because I know Citizens Advice has also got an energy saving campaign on at the moment with some grants. So who will actually deliver this? Thank you.
Thank you, Beryl.
We will deliver it via contractors. But clearly, given the timescale we've got, we need to rapidly open up applications for use. So we're going to have to do something really quite broad and quite quickly about who we can reach out to in terms of who are appropriate homes.
Perhaps social media.
Yeah, of course, social media, and well, more social media than everything else in the current environment. But we will go through all of our partners to reach out as broadly as we can. I'm entirely sympathetic to the aspiration about doing disabled green improvements. The problem is our timescale. Every scheme that you have to design individually, and disability schemes tend to be individually designed, just take a long time. Because we've got much more money than we've ever anticipated before, I'm thinking that perhaps the next Dorset own funded round we should consider treating differently, because we've got much more control and timescale over our bit of this money. So we need to think about that. But I mean, honestly, we haven't had those thoughts yet, because we're just trying to deliver what the money that's there while we can. But I think that's a very appropriate question and something we need to consider for next financial year effectively, I think.
Okay, thank you, Beryl.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've got no other requests to speak from non-cabinet members, so I'm now going to open it up to the cabinet, and the first person is Jill Haynes.
I'm getting there. Thank you, Leader. This is really good news to have this extra money. As Tony says, it's a very short time scale. So and particularly I have concerns for the very many households in rural areas across Dorset that don't have access to some of the cheaper forms of heating. And so I think what I really would like to do is encourage all councillors to ensure that they spread this news as far and wide and fast as they possibly can through their contacts and their towns and parishes, to make sure that it gets out there, because otherwise we won't have spent it all, and that will be a real shame.
Yeah, fair comment, Jill. Graham Carr-Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to reassure Councillor Ezard, on the DFGs, we've had some very welcome news this morning of a substantial increase in our DFG award, so that for disabled facilities grants. And I'm with Tony completely. The contractors on this will be exemplary, and I think we'll get this done. I think in terms of the comms message, something that we can all work with together. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Graham. I've got no other speakers. All I would say in summary is this is good news, and we could do with a bit of that, couldn't we? Given the few months we've all been through. So good news, and let's move ahead with it. So colleagues, can we agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item 14 now, which is the annual self-evaluation of children's services, and I'll hand over to Andrew Parry.
Thank you, Chairman. As you can see, the report before you is compiled at the request of the Ofsted Framework for Inspecting Local Authority Children's Services, ILACs, first published in November 2017. In particular, Cabinet will be pleased to read that in recent months we have seen our partnerships grow from strength to strength, demonstrating ability and a one Dorset approach. I do appreciate that the report asks Cabinet to note the content and for consideration. But before I do open up to colleagues for comments and question, perhaps Chairman, you allow me to speak quite candidly about what I think has been an incredibly challenging year for children's services in so many different ways, and how time and again our dedication of our officers and directors and our frontline social workers have guided many of the most vulnerable that we are responsible for at a time of great challenge in response to COVID-19 and other criteria. One of the joys of the report is it gives an opportunity to take stock of the vast range of areas that children's services are expected to have oversight of, and in some cases direct involvement in the running. And we have seen in a number of areas terrific improvements and development. If I look at, for example, under leadership and governance, this year has seen the agreement of the Children, Young People's and Families Plan, unanimously voted by Council, and thank you once again for your support. The Strengthening Services Board and the Strategic Alliance for Children and Young People are bringing together those really critical partnership arrangements that are so important, that far reach beyond the realms of Dorset Council into our communities. Section 3 of the report is quite expressive in our terms of our COVID response. We know COVID has been a very challenging and difficult time for some of our children and young people and their families. We also accept that some have actually found opportunity to show resilience and have thrived under the same circumstances. But thriving is something we want and desire for all our children and young people. In respect of the way we operate through our front door services, the new CHAD service is proving time and again, and we heard earlier in the safeguarding report, the significant improvement that is making in how we handle some of these sensitive referrals and ensure that we get the right help and support in place quickly for people. I couldn't do my role of Cabinet Member for Children if I didn't at all times carry in my heart their best intentions and in my thoughts how we can assist them further. And this particularly relates to the area of SEND, which I know we will be discussing further in our meeting. But I take my hat off time and again to the incredible work we see in this area for the highly dedicated staff, and we are aware of further work we need to do in order to support that. In terms of education and inclusion, throughout the COVID period, our schools remained open to pupils, particularly SEND and those of key workers. They have been incredibly challenging, but Dorset records one of the highest national return rates of pupils since September, and a record we can be proud of. And we thank our teachers and staff for the excellent work they're doing to safeguard and protect our children whilst delivering them an education. But I have to tell Cabinet that I am acutely aware that we are seeing pressures in areas. We are seeing an increase in the number of children who could be identified as children in need and care protection plans. We know that our number of children in care remains stubbornly high, and we have seen some children come into care as a result of the lockdown periods. But I must also recognise that in respect of our children in care, we are taking this challenge very seriously, and I welcome the announcement from our planning committee of approval for the new facility in Dorchester Road. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to conclude, as this is the final report I'll be delivering this year on this matter. My thanks to Teresa Levy and the team of corporate directors, staff and officers in Children's Services. May I also thank the Corporate Parenting Board for their work, and in particular the previous chair, Councillor Coombs, and welcome our new chair, Councillor Weller, who's doing sterling work in picking up the baton of Corporate Parenting Board. I'm very conscious of our need at all times to be respectful of the voice of the child, and I'm very glad to see time and again that has been heard loud and clear across the Children's Services. I do commend this report to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I've got one speaker, Kate Weller.
Sorry,
Kate?
Chair, I had
There
a
you are.
recalcitrant button there. Thank you very much. Yes, the comments I'm going to make refer equally to the annual safeguarding report as to this. And I've read so many of these reports over the years, and they always say things like moving in the right direction. This is the first time I've read such a report with any degree of confidence, and I have real confidence in both of those reports. We have a way to go, but I commend Teresa Levy and all her staff and our partners. Our partnership working has been excellent, as Councillor Parry says. We really are moving in the right direction. All the signs show that, and all the stats are showing that, which is extraordinarily encouraging and is a testament to the amount of work that Teresa and her team are carrying out. We've got some really good initiatives. They're moving at pace, they're being implemented, and I would just like to thank everyone involved for this report. It is enormously encouraging, and as Dorset Council we should be proud now of the work that we're producing and the way that we're working with our partners. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Kate. I'm sure Andrew really appreciates your kind words. David Taylor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Andrew. I totally agree. We are definitely going in the right direction. As you know, I sit on the foster selection committees with Catherine Lugg as well, and the fact it's been incredible work. The light is actually at the end of the tunnel, and I can see it's quite clear. And I'm just commending all the people, because it has been a great strain on all of us to make sure we get this service up and running and number one where it should be. And I'd just like to thank you for doing the work that you've done, Andrew, and Teresa Levy. Superb. It's a good team. We're really getting there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Paul Kimber.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report. I couldn't let this report pass me without saying about my concerns for the young people of Portland, and I know many of my councillors will tell me about their rural areas, which also gives a lot of councillors concerns. I have to say that my big concern is for the youth and being able to have workers around the youth for the island. As you know, we're quite away and it's been a tough old year and we've had some real concerns. I just wondered if you would indulge me and let me have to ask you about how you feel that the services are going for the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Chairman, if I can give a very, very brief response to Councillor.
Yes, please.
I thank him for his question. The Youth EAP under the chairmanship of Councillor Kirby did indeed highlight to me a need for a further conversation regarding the Portland area, as it did indeed the Upton area, and those conversations will be taking place in the new year.
Thanks, Andrew. I've got no other requests to speak. Cabinet colleagues, to receive this report. I mean, I have to say that I want to echo Andrew's remarks, and also the pride and commitment that he shows to his role, and that of officers, Teresa and Levy and others, is incredible. And I think it reflects in the outcomes, the positive outcomes that we see coming through week on week. So, you know, from my point of view, well done to all of you. Any comments from Cabinet colleagues, or can we accept this report?
Happy to
accept it.
Accept it. Thank you very much. And we can move on to agenda item 15 now, which is the Cabinet member update on policy development matters that we might have referred to one of the two overview committees for consideration. Graham, I think you might have had something to comment on this, if I remember rightly.
I do, Chairman. Thank you. I'm sorry, struggling with my buttons at the moment. Now, what I referred the homelessness strategy to the overview committee, and on the 2nd of December, we held a workshop for the committee and some invited members, and it was a really positive session, Chairman. Neil Morland and associates led the debate, led the session, and it was very, very worthwhile. And I thank Councillor Kirby for allowing me to use his committee, invite other members to come and contribute. It was really, really worthwhile. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Graham. I don't think there's any specifics that I'm aware of that are coming to overview committee. I know there are ongoing conversations that have been taking place, and it's something that I would encourage all cabinet members to have conversations with the two overview chairmen to see what work we can populate their forward plans with. So I'm not going to dwell any further on that. I don't believe there are any further updates unless anybody wants to contradict me, but I don't think there are. In which case, I'm going to move on to agenda item 16, Climate and Ecological Emergency Executive Advisory Panel update. Ray.
Chairman, Councillor Miller requests to speak.
Oh, yes, I missed it. Go on, Laura, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say that we've got some a policy going to overview in the next couple of days, I think. Looking around our financial charging and our financial assessments, it doesn't materially change the way we do things, but it is a small update. So I just wanted to highlight that that was going through, and also that I'm here because I think you missed me off at the start. So Laura Miller, Cabinet Member, Adult Social Care and Health. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Laura. Right, let's go on to Ray then.
Yes, thank you, Leader. It's a very brief one. It's just really to update you on where we are with the consultation, which, as you know, was extended until January the 20th. As of this morning, we've had 308 full responses and 150 partial responses, making a total of 458. That's to the larger consultation document. On the smaller consultation document, that stands at 221, which is in my opinion, quite low. We're still trying to get a lot of messages out. We met with town and parish councils last week to discuss what they can do to help. And I know James Potton is working very hard to make sure people realise this is going on. But I'll seize the opportunity to ask all members who are online at the moment to get the message out that this consultation is important. It's one of the many issues that this council face going forward, climate change. So we need to give it maximum impact and get the maximum result back on the consultation. And that's all I've got to say at the moment, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ray. Right, we go on to agenda item 17, which is the urgent items. There is one urgent item that is really urgent, and I only knew about it very, very recently. And it's to do with Purbeck Heath heath large grazing unit, and I'm going to invite John Selgren to speak to us about it. John.
Thank you, Chairman. An urgent decision is required by the 14th of December to secure a grant of £549,900 for a fully externally funded programme of high environmental value. The reason an urgent decision is sought is to secure the grant offer. The permission to start form needs to be signed by the Council by the 14th of December. The reason this is coming this morning as an urgent item is twofold. Firstly, that the original application was of a value which could have been entered into under delegated authority. The final allocation, and I'm pleased to inform members of this, Chairman, is above that threshold level and therefore requires a Cabinet decision. It is a significant sum of external funding that the Council has the ability to secure. The second reason it comes as an urgent item is that the grant assessment process has been heavily compressed by the administering body, and therefore we have been required to meet a timeline which has been set by them. I provided you, Chairman, as the leader of the Council, and also the portfolio for Highways, Travel, Environment, and the Chairman of the Place and Resources Scrutiny Committee, a detailed briefing note concerning this application. I'm seeking authority for Cabinet, therefore, to delegate authority to me as Executive Director for Place to sign the grant declaration on behalf of the Council.
Thank you very much, John. And I'll just pick up on the point you made. I have seen a briefing note. Thank you very much for that. I was very content with the as it's set out in the report. As you say, it's in the last minute seems to have gone over the threshold that requires on a key decision requires Cabinet sign off. I'm very, very pleased to say to all members present that we should sign this off. But I do have a right to a request to speak from Shane Bartlett, who I know has been involved. Shane.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, as I've seen the briefing note, and as it's external funding, and I've had an assurance there's no internal funding going to be used, then I'm happy for this to continue under the delegated authority. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. I think the key bit to all of this is the fact it is a key decision. And when it goes past a certain threshold, as John mentioned earlier, it does require Cabinet to sign it off and then delegate that responsibility back to the officers. So, colleagues, I don't know if we need to dwell on this. Are we content? Oh, I got a question from Beryl. Beryl Izzard.
Thank you. I mean, I think Cherry's answered it, said ward members were not included, which is rather a shame because obviously the Purbeck Heath grazing unit is probably Arn. Is it Arn you're talking about, or the Arn parish, in that Arn parish, is it?
I'll get someone to reply to you, Beryl.
Chairman, might I do that?
Please, John.
Councillor Brooks and Councillor Izzard make a good point. I understand the team have been briefing on the matter, but if it would be helpful, I can certainly ensure the local councillors are briefed on this important grant application.
I know the parish. I know the Arn Parish Council would be very interested if it is in that area, and from what the name says, I presume that's what it is. But it could be in Wareham St Martin Parish. Equally as much. So anyway, thanks for that. It sounds a really good plan and a good application, so I hope it happens. But yeah, we would like some more information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beryl. I mean, it is going to happen, and it's good news for Dorset. It's money coming into Dorset, which is really, really helpful. So colleagues, are we content?
Yep,
agreed.
Thank you very much, everybody. We're now going to thank you, John. We're now going to go into exempt business. So we're going to thank you, everybody that's been online this morning. We're going to log out from where we are now, and I'll ask members, which it is nearly 2 3/4 hours into the meeting. So I'm going to suggest we log out and have a 5-minute comfort break and then come back in for the exempt business agenda item 19. Thank you very much, everyone.
That properly proposed first before we leave. Proposed to remove.
I will propose
Peter.
that, yeah, I will propose that.
Seconded.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Right. Thank you very much, Kate.
Yeah, thanks for a great meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Cheers, everyone.